Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ongoing Mastery Presenting and Speaking, the podcast and the interview. Today we have Heather Tolley-Bauer, an expert in communication and humor. Hi, Heather. How are you today?
Hi, Kirsten. I'm good. How are you?
Oh, so good. In your honor, I am wearing my humor shirt, my big happy humor shirt.
I
And
love it.
please tell everybody about you, the basics about you, how you
Oh
got
my
into
gosh.
your world.
That's my favorite topic. No. So I am Atlanta's favorite momedian, which means I'm a mom and a stand-up comedian in the Atlanta area. I'm also a business communications expert. I was a business communications executive for a major company for many years before I became a stand-up comedian. So I'm doing stand-up comedy like for the last almost 9 years. And then a few years ago, I decided to layer in my business communications expertise. And the Venn diagram is where I am right now, which is teaching companies how to interject humor into their client and their colleague communications and interactions without getting canceled.
Yeah, there's some companies that really need your help. I saw
A
one
lot of them.
I saw one at so I went to Black Hat, which is my first cybersecurity conference, and I'm like, okay, I'm at a conference for hackers. And I saw one of the vendors had a sign about crushing hackers. And I'm like, I know you're trying to be cute, but do you know the audience at this conference? So clearly they were trying for like edgy, and it was just like, no, no, not a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I teach companies is like the kind of the first rule is you got to know your audience. And then you have to understand your audience. And so, yeah, I mean, who knows? Who knows
Well,
what they were thinking, right?
yeah. So I've got a whole, oh my God, so much to ask you, but let's start with, you know, humor is important, but why is humor important? How does it impact things?
So, humor is important because without humor, we don't have laughter. And laughter is where the science is, right? Laughter is super important, not only for all the health benefits that it brings to us, and the science is out there. We know it lowers stress, it boosts your happy hormones. It also is an innate way that where we handle stress, but also it builds trust and likability and connection. And the act of laughing has so many different physiological benefits beyond stress relief. Like it boosts memory, it boosts retention, it boosts productivity. That it's kind of a no-brainer why we need to add humor into our communications with people. That and I always like to talk about this. Humor exponentially decreases, well, not humor, but laughter exponentially decreases after the age of 23.
Really?
And yes,
Okay.
and I think that's because that is the exact moment where adulting exponentially increases. I think that's why
Solid
that
point.
is.
Solid point.
But think about all the people you encounter in your day that are over the age of 23. And guess what, y'all? They're not laughing. They're not
Yeah.
laughing. So be the person that gives them a little chuckle because they're
Mm.
going to like you, they're going to trust you, and they're going to remember you. It's really kind of like the secret sauce. It really is.
And a lot of people don't even know how to start getting it in there. So, what's the intro? What's the gate in to adding humor into your content and into your work?
Well, I think because I promise a couple of things when I go in and talk to companies, I promise them that they're going to learn the how, they're going to learn the why, the how, and the how to do it without getting canceled. And, the how is taking all these comedy principles that I've learned throughout my almost 9 years of doing stand up comedy about writing and word connection and all the different tools that comedians use. Kind of like I know you have an improv background or you've experienced improv.
Yep. Yep, it's amazing and wonderful and terrifying. It's all the
All the
things.
things, right? All the things. And so is humor because, in this world, one of our biggest problems is that we don't have time to connect with people. And also we're like, oh my God, but can I even say that? Like, am I going
Mhm.
to get hashtag canceled or called into the HR department if I do say that? So, the way that I, work with companies and salespeople and things like that, and how to stay in a safe spot is to really do a deep dive into your audience and who is this person or people that you are talking to. What are their pain points? What are their successes? What are their challenges? What are their likes? What are their dislikes? What's their culture if it's a company? And speak to that, make jokes about that, add humor to about that, tell
Nice.
stories about those things. And that's just one way to stay in a safe lane when you're a corporate communicator.
Yeah, I saw a keynote speaker who has been in the business forever, and clearly his humor was developed 30 years ago because he's got some jokes that one joke landed and literally I just froze and a couple of people left and he didn't even recognize this was an issue. But I was like, "Oh yeah, no, that's not going to fly. That's not
Mm-mm.
going to work anymore." And so humor does evolve over time and it's tied to culture. So
Mm-hmm.
how surprised are your clients when they discover that they actually like need to be in tune with popular culture and change of language?
I don't think that they're that surprised by it because oftentimes I'm working with salespeople, and
Ah,
salespeople have to relate to people
yeah.
on a lot of different levels. And how we relate to people are telling stories, being aware of what's out there, and then and making connections. And some of the things that, um, you know, humor and laughter builds trust. So, not just because it shows me that you get me, like if
Yeah.
you make a joke about your mother-in-law, your father-in-law, your teenage son, whatever the case may be, and I am also living that reality. Now I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this person gets me." Like we innately have something in common and it bonds us, but not only that, but physiologically, oxytocin starts to run rampant through our bodies, and that is our love and trust centers. It does other things, but it is that boosts our love and our trust receptors in our brain, which means we are wired to like and trust the people who make us laugh. And the things that make us laugh are shared experiences, common experiences, embarrassing stories. And so understanding what's happening out there in the world and pop culture is really important to bringing that all together and creating likability and connection.
So, what are the challenges that if you've found about the getting canceled piece? What are the challenges that you've helped people navigate for the boundaries of humor? Because it's not super clear what those boundaries are all the time.
No, and you're not always going to get it right. And I always say, if you have a good comedy game, you better have a good apology game too, because
Ooh, I like that quote.
it um because you're not always going to get it right. One thing that is a really useful tool is using the inside joke, but timing is everything. And so for instance, I was working with a client. I got booked to do custom comedy for their employee retreat, and they were just embarking on facial recognition as a way of punching in. So they were now going to, like, they show up for work, they're going to do facial recognition, and not everybody was like real happy about that. Like people internalize that change in different ways.
Yeah.
So right off the top, I did jokes about things about facial recognition, like how when I opened my phone, my phone can recognize me with my sunglasses on and it opens up, and it can recognize me with my readers on and it opens up, but with nothing on, it opens up and it directs me directly to my dermatologist's office, or something along those
Hmm.
lines. And so we're talking about that was an inside joke that went well, but if it were a topic that was still smarting a bit, that was a little more controversial, maybe now's not the time to talk about it, not only
Mm.
corporately, but in your personal interactions. Hashtag too soon is a thing for real.
I I would imagine AI is a subject that is just not, you can't even get close to in most audiences because it's on
And what do
fire
you
and
mean by
so
that?
well. The subject of AI in the learning and development community, and I have a frog in my
Mm,
throat, is there's a lot of nervousness, a lot of fear around it. And yet
right.
in the tech training community, there's a lot of excitement around it. And so it's one of those things where you have people in both sides that are essentially going and looking at the group think and the everybody's feeling and going, no, 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 no. So you've got people in L&D who are like, no, it's great, it's fine, no problem. And
Right.
you've got people over in the tech trading world going, whoa, back up, it's not as awesome as you think. So I imagine subjects like that are even harder to navigate, to find the humor, or no?
Not necessarily. It
Okay.
could be. Yeah, it very well could be. Or it could be that you just talk about the elephant in the room.
Mm,
And you say, if you're talking to a group of people that have those two different perspectives, then you compare and contrast those two perspectives. And then
okay.
you put it in, then you fold it into some sort of analogy or metaphor or simile or something. You have to be literate to be a comedian. I can tell you, you have to have a good command of
Mhm.
the English language to be a good comedian. But so maybe you would say, for you guys over here, AI is like something, something, something. And for you guys over here, AI is like something, something. And for me, it's like, and then you bring those things together with your own little twist.
So several things you've said so far, which I love the fact that this brings this up. Several things you've said so far show that you do research on your clients before you speak, which all good speakers do, but not all speakers know they need to do. So what is
Right.
your prep process?
So with every client that I have, I do what I call a listen and learn chat where I'm getting to know their culture. I'm getting to know what do they call each other? How do they spend their Fridays? Do they do, wacky Gene Friday? Tell me something about your CEO. Tell me something about yourself. I mean, I do as deep of a dive as I can possibly do in about 30 minutes, and I just listen to their stories, and I listen to how they say certain things, and I listen for those inside jokes. And that is how so that's how I they don't even know that they're giving me comedy gold, but or relatability gold, let's just put it that way.
Yep.
It's because it's up to me to turn it into something.
Yeah.
It's up
Yeah.
to me to turn it into something, and that's where the comedian humor expert comes into play. And honestly, after a while, and you know this from improv, your brain just starts to look for these things. You train your brain to just start to formulate um, these patterns.
Yeah.
And now you know what to look for when you're talking to somebody in a conversation, when you're preparing for a speech. Um, but also, I would say that it all has to be comedy that is elevating something
Oh,
and
I
or
love that.
someone.
Okay, that's
It
another quote
has to.
right there. That's another, pull that and
Write
put
that
make that.
down.
Yes. Yes. That's another awesome quote.
It
Okay.
for speakers, I talk to a lot of speakers because I help speakers like write their speeches in a more funny way. Not everybody. We're not talking about Kevin Hart here, people. We're not talking about you being the funniest person in the room. We're talking about you being the most relatable person in the room, being the most effective speaker that you can be, being the most memorable, making sure that the information that you are the expert on, that they can remember it by throwing in some other ways to engage the audience that fires the brain into different ways so that it all so that it all hangs together. But we're
Awesome.
not talking about set up punchline, set up punchline.
Okay.
We're not talking about a joke. We're talking about creating an atmosphere of levity
Mm.
that lifts people up and never punches down. And so you can't, as a speaker, you cannot add humor just for the sake of doing it. It has to support and enhance and elevate your message and your goal for your audience.
Oh God, thank you. Yeah, the number of times I've heard folks who do a formula, like you can tell that they wrote, say this, put a joke here. And it's like it's so painful
Yeah.
because it's obvious that they are trying to land this joke. And it's like, how how difficult is it in working with clients to help them understand that it's their voice and they're not trying, like, people want to be somebody else when they're telling a joke. Like they're like, well, I will then and
Right.
plug this in here, and it's like, no, it's still your voice. How hard is that?
I think they're actually kind of relieved by it.
Okay,
I
good.
think the minute I tell them I'm not trying to get you to be Kevin Hart, they're like, "Oh, thank goodness, because there's no way I'll be Kevin Hart."
Hmm. Yeah.
um, I think that when the one of the reasons why comedy doesn't work, or humor doesn't work in business communications or speeches or whatever, is because it's not authentic.
Yeah.
And you can't force it. You just can't force comedy onto anybody. Many comedian have tried.
Yeah.
So again, you just have to. It's just going in and resetting expectations. People say, "I want." When a client comes to me and they said, "Hey, I want my speech to be funnier," the first question I ask is, "Why?
Ooh, nice. Okay.
What are you talking about? Who's your audience?" And then we go from there. And then
Hmm.
instead of maybe making it like what people think of as traditionally funny, we just add good elements of comedy that punch it up,
Okay.
make it easier to listen to.
Oh, the power of the pause.
Yeah, the power of the pause, the power of the turning a good phrase, adding like, you know what, an analogy here. This needs to compare and contrast. All of those are comedy frameworks
Mhm.
um, that that help make people better writers and just better speakers.
So the core of it is obviously just good communication.
Hmm.
What are the things that trip people up in trying to get the good communication? What holds people back from success?
Well, I think it's not really knowing what the one main idea is of what you're trying to
Ooh,
of
okay.
what you are trying what is the thing. And I'm learning this too as I'm moving out of comedy space and into keynote space. um I'm learning this too. I want to cram a lot of information in because I have a lot of knowledge, right? And
Yeah.
so I'm the expert. I want to cram a lot of information. I want to give them a lot of useful information, but it's no use to them if they can't remember it, apply it, whatever. And this is what I'm learning. And so this is what I've learned through comedy, and what I learned through business communications, and what I talk to when I talk to people. Okay, why are you giving the speech?
Mhm.
What is the thing you want that person in the seat, picture the person, to walk away with? If they remember only one thing, what is it?
Nice. All
And if
right.
they're not clear on that,
Yeah.
then we have a different jumping off point.
Yes. 100%. So lots and lots of gold in this. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. What would you say is in the world of ongoing mastery of presenting and speaking?
Mhm.
What is a thing that you want everybody to take away from this conversation?
Um, well, I mean, one of the things is that you comedy has also taught me this: you can't stay stagnant.
Okay.
I always have to be working on my craft, always. And so there's no such thing in comedy as phoning it in. People paid to see me,
Yeah.
you know, and it's no different when you're a speaker. You know, you have to treat it like it is the most important thing, and that you are, no matter what's going on in your life, that this is the most exciting thing that you have going on, and that they have your full attention. But the thing, and all of your energy. But I think the one thing is remembering, though, that none of it is about you. It's all about them. I
Yes.
approach my
Awesome.
comedy that way. I approach my speaking that way. I approach my customized comedy shows that way. It is all about them. Not what do I want to say, but
Yeah.
what do they need and want to hear. And then I I craft it in the way and the style that only Heather Tolley-Bauer can do. That's,
Perfect.
and I find what that is for you if you're my client.
Now, obviously, people need to find you. So where do they
Yes.
find you?
I'm on LinkedIn at Heather
Mhm.
Tolley-Bauer, and also my website, which is -up.com. It's just me making fun of my hyphenated name. That's where that
Okay.
comes from.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being on. This was awesome. So much good stuff in this. Really appreciate your
Kirsten,
time.
thank you for having me.
Happy
I'm
to.
so delighted. Thank you.
And everybody who is watching and listening, please make comments. And I would like to ask that everybody puts their favorite dad joke into the comments because I personally need a few more in my life. All right. So there's where we're going to wrap it up. We'll see everybody next time. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Have a good one.